Welcome to the Living a Nordic Life podcast, where we explore a simpler, cosier and more intentional life the Nordic way. I'm Fiona McKenna, your Nordic living guide and founder of Living a Nordic Life, where I share all things Nordic living and show you that a Nordic life is the way to bring intentional calm and healthy habits into your own life, wherever you are in the world. Are you looking for ways to bring simplicity, coziness and calm into your life? Well, let me show you how. Visit the Living a Nordic Life website to explore how I can help you on your journey to simple, healthy and happy calm, the Nordic way. You can subscribe to the podcast right here. And if you want regular inspirational emails sent with love from Norway and straight to your inbox, don't forget to subscribe to the Living a Nordic Life newsletters. And so now let's dive into our episode. Let's talk about lingonberries, because they are a wild treasure of the Nordic forests. And they're something that people here absolutely love. I'm going to take you on a little journey for a minute. Imagine that you're walking through the deep forest in southern Norway. You're walking with me. And we're walking through the pine trees with the occasional silver birch, or maybe an oak, because it's mixed woodland. It's mostly pine though. Under your feet is smooth granite, and to either side is a little path winding through the forest, but to either side is heather and ling with its very pale pink blossoms. So you've got that lovely colour of grey and pale pink, and the kind of dusty green of the pine trees. And then between, there's bouncy sphagnum moss and the kind of crispy grey reindeer moss, which is in fact a lichen. And amongst this are all these stubby little plants with little leathery leaves. They're about 6 inches tall, and at first glance you would think that they were blueberries because they look very much like a blueberry plant. And this is why we have to wait until late summer to be sure what we're picking. Blueberries fruit as early as June. In fact, I've been picking blueberries since beginning of June. They fruited very early this year. So for those of us eager to start our bear tour, which is going out and picking berries, which everybody does here in Norway, we have this kind of early reward with the blueberries. Lingonberries, however, are a little bit more patient. We have to be a little bit more patient. They like to wait until the cooler turn of late summer. And in my part of Norway, they are so reliable that you almost can set your watch by them. I always expect to be picking my first basket of ripe lingonberries on the 29th of August. Yep, I kid you not. It is that precise. Now, if you don't know what a lingonberry is, it looks a little bit like a cranberry, but it's smaller and it's got a similar taste to cranberry. But unlike cranberries that like to grow in very wet, boggy places, lingonberries prefer to grow on the forest floor where sometimes it can actually be quite dry. Here in Norway, I mean, there are areas where they grow where it's a little bit wetter, but they seem to prefer it where it's a little bit dry. But they're prolific here in the Nordic region. They thrive in the rich forest floor, sheltered by dappled shade and nourished by the mild, damp summers. Although we love them as humans, so does the wildlife. Moose and deer graze the leaves, and that's actually why it's better to wait until later in the summer, because then there are berries left on the plants but no leaves. How strange is that? It's a little bit like the blueberries. Foxes, birds and even small rodents like to eat the berries. Even my own dog, Mabel, who's a border collie, she's been known to have a nose around the bushes and help herself to some of them. Usually you have to pick them for her, I have to say, and she's so busy completely trashing the forest and grabbing sticks and pulling things off stuff that she forgets about the berries. But even with all of us taking our share, the absolute sheer abundance of them means that there are plenty left to ripen, fall, and return to the soil. But what are the benefits of lingonberries? Apart from looking pretty and tasting delicious, they're also one of nature's superfoods. They're especially rich in antioxidants, those powerful compounds that help fight free radicals in the body. You know, the free radicals are the things that go out and make you look old. So broccoli is another good one for that. But lingonberries are brilliant. They're also high in vitamin C and A, as well as high in fibre. Although they're a fruit, they're actually quite fibrous, making them an excellent addition to a healthy diet. In Nordic folk medicine, lingonberries were long believed to aid digestion. And they were even recommended for urinary tract health. That's a bit like cranberries, isn't it? You should drink a certain amount of cranberry juice. Same with lingonberries. And it's a belief that modern science has actually since supported. How brilliant is that? And unlike many sweet berries, lingonberries are naturally quite tart, which means that they don't spike our blood sugar. That's brilliant, isn't it? For those of us that are hypoglycemic, I am. And when you feel your blood sugar level dropping, you really do want to eat something that's quite sweet. Usually for me, it's a banana. And that kind of takes me up to a sort of level that's okay. And then I can eat something that's a little bit more slow release. But lingonberries are good because although they're a fruit, they're not really sugary. And this has made them not only an important food in the past for survival, but for modern well-being as well. And especially as they grow wild and they're organic, how much better do you get? They're used a lot in the Nordic region in traditional cooking. And if you sit down to a meal in Sweden, Norway or Finland, there's a really good chance that you're going to encounter lingonberries in some form, especially as we get to the end of the summer and into the autumn, and actually even through the winter, because surprisingly they will keep a very long time in the fridge. I've kept them for a few weeks, but I have heard tell that they will keep for 3 months. If you don't want to keep them in the fridge, you can put them in the freezer. I have to say, all you need to do is just put them in a bag. You don't need to do anything with them. Fresh lingonberries in a bag in the freezer, and they're fabulous when they come out. I can testify to that. But they're so tightly woven into Nordic food culture that it's hard to imagine traditional cooking without them in some kind of form, and that's in sweet and savoury dishes. The most famous one is lingonsylt. It's a simple but essential lingonberry jam. And we have it here in Norway and they have it in Sweden. And usually you find it served alongside Swedish meatballs, or it can be spooned onto pancakes or put next to fried herring. But it kind of cuts through the richness of meat and dairy, balancing the flavours. It's really satisfying to eat that with that sort of sweet, kind of slightly tart fruitiness. And it feels kind of rustic and refined, not to mention delicious. I love it. I always make a lot and it keeps quite a long time. And I have to say, we usually have it at Christmas. And we have it at Christmas in my part of Norway with pork. But my family love it with meatballs as well. Meatballs, mashed potato, maybe a little bit of cabbage and some lingonberry jam. And you haven't lived if you haven't had meatballs and lingonberry jam. Sounds weird, but go on, try it. I think you'll love it. In Norway, a lingonberry jam, the lingonberry preserves, are often paired with game, like moose or reindeer, while in Finland they might be stirred into porridge or baked into pastries. Historically, the berries were preserved for the long, dark winters when fresh fruit wasn't really available. Before refrigeration, the benzoic acid content, which is natural in lingonberries, acted as a preservative, allowing them to be stored in water-filled jars, sometimes for months, without spoiling at all. And this made them one of the most reliable sources of vitamins during the hard winters. It's almost like eating a vitamin pill, isn't it? Or a couple of vitamin pills in the winter. How brilliant is that? Personally, I wouldn't have stored them in water. I would have just put them somewhere cold. But there you go. Let's talk about each country's traditions that relate to lingonberries, because there are traditions with them and they're used an awful lot. And although they're common across the Nordics, each country has its own specific traditions, culinary traditions, that relate to them. In Sweden, it's almost a national symbol. It's often served with köttbullar, meatballs, or on potato pancakes, or even in porridge. That would be nice, wouldn't it, in porridge? Imagine that. A late autumn morning, it's a little bit cold outside, leaves are turning, And you need something, don't you, to fill your stomach so that you feel nice to go out, refreshed and, ready to start the day. Nice bowl of oat porridge or barley porridge maybe, with a spoonful of lingonberry jam to sweeten it. It's lovely, isn't it? I want to have that now. In Norway, they're called tyttebær. And they're used in both sweet and savoury dishes. They're used in sauces for venison or folded into whipped cream for desserts like troll creme. If you want to make troll creme, go and have a look on the Living a Nordic Life website. I've got a recipe. It is so simple. It's simple and delicious. There's something about it that is so very Nordic. You've got a sweetness, but it's a very light dessert. You've got a sweetness to it, but then you've got this sharp tartness from the berries. And if you can't get lingonberries, you can always use some cranberries. That's close enough, I think. We'll let you get away with that. But yeah, one of those recipes that just has a couple of ingredients. In Finland, they often feature in baked goods like pies and tarts. Lingonberry tart is lovely. And that, again, on my website, go and have a look. You're going to love that one. And I have another one that's very similar. It's a Finnish blueberry tart, which has been very popular with my readers because it's easy to make, incredibly Finnish, and absolutely delicious, hot or cold. But they're often also simply mashed with sugar. That's lovely, isn't it? In fact, my youngest daughter, Mia, made that yesterday at school. I don't think it was intentional. She brought the lingonberries home. They'd been picking blueberries, actually, but there hadn't been very many. So she'd picked lingonberries instead, brought them home and mashed them up with sugar at home and ate them as a little snack. In Iceland, although the harsher landscape actually limits their growth, lingonberries are treasured when they're found. It's a bit special, isn't it? A bit like the cloudberries here in Norway. And they're often preserved or used in sweets. These regional variations highlight just how deeply that berry is ingrained in everyday life across Scandinavia. They're even used in drinks. And it really shines in a drink, actually. One of the most refreshing is a tangy ruby red juice that's made from the berries. It's often served diluted with water, making a sharp but thirst-quenching late summer drink. And I love to make lingonberry cordial. I make it and then I can it, preserve it so that I can put it away. And it's a welcome and refreshing drink to have in the cold of the winter, actually, when we're a little bit short of berries. Although you can go out and buy cordials and squash, it's really nice to have something that you've made yourself that just reminds you of those days out in the forest picking berries. You can even warm the juice with a little bit of spice, something sweet, a sweet spice like cinnamon or cloves, and make it into something like a mulled wine. Non-alcoholic, of course. Some craft brewers in Sweden and Finland even incorporate the lingonberries into beers. They can be incorporated into cider or lingonberry liqueur. And that's really incredibly Nordic, isn't it? So what about recipes and modern uses? Today, lingonberries are enjoying a revival beyond traditional use. Chefs across Scandinavia like to experiment with them in new ways. They're folded into cheesecakes, they're made into chutneys. Let's try that one myself, actually. Or even picked to serve with charcuterie. And a simple recipe that anyone can try is fresh lingonberries stirred with a little sugar. Doesn't need any cooking, and it preserves that bright tart flavour and pairs beautifully with everything from yoghurt to roast meats. There's a lot of things that are made like that here in Norway from fruit. You can do it with strawberries and with raspberries. Just squish them down, stir a bit of sugar into them, and you have something that is like a fresh jam, and it'll keep for a couple of days in the fridge. There's something deeply grounding about foraging for lingonberries. To walk through the quiet forest, to bend down and pick handful after handful. It's taking part in a tradition as old as Scandinavia itself. For centuries, these berries have sustained people and animals alike, colouring the cuisine and the culture of the north. Whether served as a spoonful of jam besides some hearty meat, poured into a glass as a refreshing drink, or simply eaten fresh from the bush. Lingonberries connect us to the land and its rhythms. So, the next time you find yourself in a Nordic forest at the end of August, take a closer look at the ground. Just stop for a minute and have a good look, because those berries are buried sometimes underneath the leaves. Have a look between the moss and the lichen, because chances are you're going to find some lingonberries waiting for you. And if it's a red berry growing close to the ground on a little bush, there's a very good chance it's a lingonberry. And you'll be taking part in something that's been going on for centuries. Berry picking in the Nordics is something that is so traditional. It's what's called friluftsliv in Norway, and that is spending quality time outside in nature. You don't have to necessarily be doing anything, but picking berries is a great way. Picking lingonberries especially is a great way to do it. And it's something that I share in my new book, Friluftsliv, How to Love the Outdoors Like You're Nordic. It's a gentle and encouraging guide to getting outside like you're Nordic and learning to love the outdoors and all the wonderful benefits that it has to offer us wherever we are in the world. You do not have to live here in Norway. And if you want to find out more about it, you can go to the Living a Nordic Life blog, Living a Nordic Life website, or my Facebook page or the Facebook group. And I will see you soon. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the Living a Nordic Life newsletters so you can get an email when I release a new episode. It's a quick and easy way to keep up with all things Nordic living. Please visit livinganordiclife.com. You can listen to Living a Nordic Life on lots of podcast apps, including Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcasts, and plenty of others. If you've enjoyed the Living a Nordic Life podcast, why not leave me a rating? So that's the end of Living a Nordic Life for today, and I look forward to seeing you next time.